Thank you, ma'am. May I request Mr. Gopi Katragadar, the MDG India Technology Center, to please address the audience.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure and privilege being here, sharing the dais with Dr. Mashelkar, Professor Anil Gupta, Srimati Elaben Bhatt, and Dr. Agarwal. It is indeed the thought leadership here that's going to take the country forward, and I'm humbled to be here with them. And also, having seen the ideas out there, I'm humbled to be here with you. Professor Gupta asked me to talk about how industry views this innovation and how it can be taken forward. I think it's a very apt question because he struggles with the dilemma that, based on what I've created, we have come up with so many ideas. But ideas is not where he would like to stop. He would like to take it into the market and make a difference to the people of this country and for the world. So I'm very happy to talk on that topic and share some of the thoughts which I have. And being from GE, I thought I'll share a couple of things before I do that. One is I'm from Bangalore John F. Welch Technology Center. And many of you will not know this, that the existence of that center was made possible because of Dr. Mashelkar. We actually started our operations in India at the National Chemical Laboratories when Mashelkar was heading it. And he was also our advisor when we started the center in 2000. 99 was when we incorporated. We moved into our current location in 2000. Today, we have produced 1,850 patents, large number. In fact, just in the last 2 years, Dr. Mashelkar, we produced 850 patents. Now, it's not important how many number of patents that we produce, but the fact that these are going into products. And these products are solving some of the toughest problems of detecting cancer, finding out what stage the cancer is in, and hence being able to treat it with an appropriate level of medication. Being able to produce energy both at a centralized level and at a distributed level. These are the kinds of things which the team is producing. Now, this wouldn't have happened if not for the fact that Dr. Mashelkar and his leadership gave the confidence to GE that we should access the talent of India directly, given the success we had with National Chemical Laboratories. So thank you, Dr. Mashelkar. The other thing which I wanted to talk about, given that this is an audience which is interested in innovation, is about GE very briefly. Our founder was Edison. Some of you would have heard of that. And some of you would also associate Edison with the light bulb. Is that right? Yeah? How many of you will agree if I say that Edison invented the light bulb? Show of hands. Edison invented the light bulb? Yeah? So few people. So the fact is that Edison made improvements which made its way into a practical light bulb. He made improvements in creating a tungsten, eventually a tungsten filament, started off with a carbon filament, which made the bulb last long enough. But 50 years before his time, electricity was passed through filament and lighting was produced. However, Edison is still associated with the light bulb because he took it to the market. He created the infrastructure, the system level possibility to take lighting to the home. Right, so he created centralized generation of electricity, transmission and distribution, taking electricity to the home, and then comes your light bulb. So if not for the rest of the system, the light bulb would not have been successful. So that's the way you have to also think about your invention, is what is the ecosystem, what is the system, what is required to make this a sustainable innovation. An innovation which produced the wealth of the United States for 125 years, right? Because it's not about the light bulb. It's about electrification. Anything which can be electrified started becoming electrified because we took electricity to everybody's homes. Now can we produce electric refrigerators? Can we produce electric stove tops? And whatever, industrially, what can be electrified? We electrified everything. And it was not for GE alone. We produced the wealth of nations for the United States. Even today, it is based on electrification. So what is it that we can do in India with this kind of a team that will make wealth for India for the next 125 years, next 300 years. It's not about the money, let me tell you. It's about being able to live with a certain standard of living, right? It is about thinking about the people who do not have jobs. How do we create jobs for them? How do we solve some of the world's toughest problems in the most environmentally friendly way? That's the thinking which is required, and that's the thinking which Edison had when he led the electric revolution. Now, when we talk about Gandhian innovation for the first time, it is always a conflict in the mind, because the Gandhian way is about being minimalistic, is about taking from the earth only what we can give back in our lifetimes. And that is extremely difficult. If you think about it, I took a flight, came to Delhi for a meeting. From there, I came here to attend this meeting. I put out some carbon in the process into the atmosphere. Any carbon I put out now, it takes 100 years to remove from the atmosphere, right? There is a cycle before, even if I plant a tree, it can take it in. And even if the tree takes it in, when the tree dies and decays, it puts it back. So what is the way we can think about Gandhian and innovation together? That is not a simple problem, but it has to be thought through, because that's the only way we are going to be able to live in the future. Everything which is out there, everything, even what we put out as GE, has to be reinvented to this new reality. We cannot just continue living the way we are and continue growing the way the Western world has grown and expect that we will have great health and comfort, which is what all these innovations are for anyway, right? If you think about it, my daughter has much more in terms of the health access than I ever did, much more in terms of ability to participate in physical activity, much more in terms of anything that I can think about. But she has allergies, and this is a new age disease, right? So every now and then she is going to be down, wheezing, and there are several children with this problem because of pollution, because of maybe some of the medications, the antibiotics that make us not only immune to certain bad kind of bacteria, but also immune to good bacteria. So it's not that development is going to be unidirectional unless we give it a detailed thought. Gandhian is also about slowing down. Innovation typically is about speeding up. In my company, we talk about speed, faster new product introduction, speed, speed, speed. But if you think about what is Gandhian, Gandhian is about slowing down to some extent. Feeling the yarn is how I would like to put it. If you have the time to make your own fabric, isn't that slowing down? But isn't that good that you're able to slow down to the point where you actually become creative? Because speed is not going to allow you to be creative. It is the ability to balance that speed and the time when you can think slowly and use your hands to produce what you need that is going to push us forward in terms of technology as well. And technology alone is not going to solve the problems of a consumeristic society. And we cannot follow the path of the West, but in our cities we are already consumeristic. We have a lot of privileges which we probably will not give up, but maybe at least we should not misuse. So there is no voluntarily going back from some of the conveniences that we have. Think about it. Opening the tap and getting water from the tap is a given now, right? How many of us think about some of our rural brothers who are here who might have to walk and get some water and who have to do much more to get some drinking water? In fact, that is going to be the state of affairs unless we think about how we are going to solve the problem of limited water supply, limited potable water, and the fact that our way of using the water is not sustainable. There's no going back from having entertainment in the room, right? You switch on a TV and you get entertained. You know, I don't know how many of you watch cricket the day before yesterday, or I think Miss India winning yesterday. I don't know if they telecast it live, but I saw it in the news. But these are things which you can watch in your room. You don't have to go to a particular location and watch folk dance, right? Those were the ways entertainment used to be in the past. But this comes at a cost. The ability to have a TV in your room or maybe 3 TVs in your home and have electricity and satellite downloads, that is going to come at a cost, but we need to make it as environmentally neutral as possible. Computing at your fingertips. You know, when I was doing my project work, like many of you have done, I was using punch cards, if you believe. You make a computer program, put a card in, it'll poke holes into a card, and that if you want to change it, now you have to do the whole thing again. You just can't on the line change it and recompile, right? You have to print this whole deck of cards again and take it to some other place where it will get executed. And by the way, all of this used to be in an AC room where you have to leave your footwear out before going in. Times have changed now, and at home you have a computer which is much more powerful, about 10 times, 100 times more powerful than the computer I used for running my finite element models when I was in my graduate school. But are you going to give that up? I don't think so, and I don't think that is the intent also of Gandhian innovation. The thought process is making sure that we are not wasting the resources that we have at our hands. And friends in your pocket. Do you have friends in your pocket? You have a mobile phone in your pocket, Facebook on the mobile phone, and you update everything on the Facebook, right? You're a new generation altogether. I've seen Facebook status where you say, I am in relationship with so-and-so. Maybe not here, but I've seen it in Bangalore. And this is a very open, transparent generation. It's a new generation. Innovating for this generation is going to be different than innovating for anybody in the past. So then, let's talk about innovation and make sure that we frame it properly in order to talk about your ideas. Innovation is finding new ways of creating value. In a very simply put sentence, it's finding new ways of creating value. So there is creativity, but creativity is not all. That is finding new ways, but of creating value. So there is a money aspect to it or some other way of creating value that we sometimes are shy to talk about. And that is something which you should be very much aware that money is okay. It is what will pull people out of joblessness. It is what will enable you to drive your ideas, the right ideas, into the market, as opposed to somebody else who has idea which is more environmentally unfriendly, but has much more passion and much more money behind it, right? So money is a necessary currency of taking your innovation into the market. By the way, I gave you the example of Edison. He had the money of J.P. Morgan. Today you have the Morgan Institute. You will see it still a financial institute. So Edison was funded by J.P. Morgan. So without that, he wouldn't have been able to bring his product into the market. J.P. Morgan also had all the connections which allowed Edison to showcase his light at Wall Street, at J.P. Morgan's home, so that he could get that talk going about his product, which is the light bulb. So you need to be able to market your product. You need to be able to fund various aspects of the product development. So innovation is about finding new ways to create value. These have to be long-term. These have to be scalable. These have to be monetizable, right? And speed up and experience life is the way typically we think about innovation in the industry today. So this has to be married with slow down and feel the yarn, right? That marriage will actually be the right way to move the society forward. Innovation has always been about harnessing nature through collective human intellect. It is not about the intellect that you have today that's going to be able to produce a massive innovation. It's being able to connect to the innovation of the past, the intellect of the past as well. So recently, my chairman asked me, why don't you shut down, the steam turbine factories and steam turbine R&D in the US, bring it all into India? Why don't you shut down certain aspects of healthcare development in the US, bring it all to India? Why don't you shut down the ability to generate power, distributed power through engines wherever they are and bring it to India? And I said, healthcare, affordable care, I will do it. And he promised me a good amount of funding to be able to do it. But I said steam generator or steam turbines, it's a heritage engineering product, which means that engineering is handed down generation to generation, and it is cumulative. So you cannot just shut off Schenectady and Florence as an example and move things to India. So think about that. You need to be able to connect to the past as well. Environmentally conscious innovation is something which people are talking now, so that marries to the Gandhian aspects. It takes into account sustainability. And another thing which people are talking about is inclusive innovation, making innovation accessible, so that will complete the marriage of Gandhian and innovation. Now again, for helping you understand that innovation creates wealth of the nation, let me talk about the innovation ages that we have had so far very briefly. We had the materials age, and India was the king. In fact, everybody was hunting for India, right, at that point of time. The materials, be it gold or silver or steel or even spice, was what led people to explore and try to find the trade routes to India when the land and the sea routes when the land routes were shut off. So we, between 500 BC to 1500 AD, we ruled the roost because it was based on India having the best raw material for various things. In fact, I need to tell you a brief story here. Richard the Great and Salahuddin are two characters, and they faced off each other in a war. And the story goes that Richard the Great, to show how powerful he was, took out his sword and cut through a log of wood. Salahuddin took out his sword. Alpha males, right? They are trying to demonstrate who is better. Cut the wood into further half. And then he tossed up a silk scarf into the air, let it land gently on the sword's edge, and that silk scarf, landing softly, cleaved into two. Even Richard the Great knew that it takes a better sword to be able to cleave a softly landing silk scarf than the sword which cuts through wood. That sword was made from what is known as Damascus steel. It's a misnomer, just like Arabic numerals, right? Damascus steel was steel made, and that was the only place carbon steel was made at that point of time was India. This was called Wood's steel. It's still called wood steel. People have made enormous attempts to research how that steel was made, the heat treatment, the impurities in the steel which led to the properties of the steel. The sword could bend 90 degrees at the hilt and at the same time cleave through wood and cut through a softly landing silk scarf. So from 500 BC to 1500 AD, the only place carbon steel was made was India, right? So we had that capability. And of course, thanks to Mother India, that she gave us maybe the ore which had the right kind of impurities. But we also had a problem, which is we did not document anything, right? So suddenly we lost the art, probably because the ore diminished, and when we found the ore again, we did not have the skill set because it was handed down person to person, and when there was a gap, you didn't have the ability to hand it down. Anyway, that was our age. And then you had the industrial age. The industrial age was created when Watt was able to produce a steam engine which was efficient enough to move anything which moved, and provided a capability of automation. In fact, many of the ills that we talk about on the environmental side, unfortunately, are because of the same thing. Mass production, automation, produce for the world, shirt made locally is Gandhian, for yourself is more Gandhian. But in those days, the good thing was to be able to scale and produce a shirt for the world, right? So difference in thinking, but there was no ill intent. The intent was let's reduce the labor, increase the scale, and produce something at lower cost for the whole world. So that was James Watt, but his was the hand. The theory was Newton's, so the mind was Newton's. There was a person who understood the market, and he was the one who told James Watt, do not use your motor for pumping water, but use it for moving anything which requires moving, and that's how the industrial age was created. So there is a hand-mind market piece to this. Electric age I already talked about with Edison. J.P. Morgan was the person who understood the market. The science was that of Maxwell. Digital age, Einstein was the mind. Shockley's transistor was the hand piece which made it happen. Sony Electronics and their radio transistor was what led it into the market. So that's where we are right now. If you look at the point of time, we are about one third almost are coming from these ages in terms of revenues. The next age, I think, is going to be the molecular age, where the understanding of the genome, the DNA, and molecular level knowledge is going to change pretty much all that we do. And innovation in India is again something which we need to briefly touch upon. The best minds have come from India. Just think about it, Aryabhatta. He was able to code the entire sine table into 2 or 3 lines, right? And ability to do that requires huge amount of thinking when the rest of the world was fighting wars. I talked about the Damascus sword, the best people in terms of being able to use their hands. The best ideas, even applications, the modern day rocketry goes back to Tipu's rockets, right? So if you think about it, Chinese rockets were there much before, but the first rocket with a payload was Tipu's rockets. And the reason we were able to do it, because we had cast iron, we could pack enough gunpowder into it without exploding it right there. It would launch with the payload. The payload in this case was a bayonet. It would go off, and when it came down, it was imbalanced, so it would rotate and cause havoc in the enemy lines, because we were launching thousands of rockets at the same time. Finally, when the British won, after losing a couple of battles to those rockets, they took back the rocket technologies from India, used it, developed it further because they used Newtonian mechanics and improved them, and used them in Napoleonic wars, which led to modern day rocketry. So it's not that we are desktop people and we don't come up with applications. We did. So we can do it. One thing which I did want to point out, and it was there out there, is that Jugaad is great. We need it, but it's not innovation. Jugaad is makeshift solutions to local problems. Innovation is, like we discussed, about being able to scale it and monetize it at a much larger level. To make that happen, we need to smash the hand-mine market barrier in India. We have typically been people who, over the last several centuries, been siloed. So if people who get educated don't go into the field. And that's why when Professor Gupta takes his students out into the field and lives among the rural population and lives the life the way they do without access to even toilets in some cases, that is when you will be able to think and innovate for them. Otherwise, you will be producing things which, sitting from an AC room, might think look cool, like a laptop for a farmer. He doesn't need it. He has many more other needs which need to be met. So I've mentioned this, everything out there has to be reinvented. I always say this is my generation. I think you will also want to say that this is your generation and join the call to reinvent everything there. The way you do it is create it with freedom, nurture with passion, and change with detachment. Now, just wrap up with what you have done and how you take it further. What India needs at this point of time. Number one is electricity, energy. We have about 200 gigawatts of installed capacity. We need another 200 gigawatts today. Policymakers will tell you we are 10 to 15% short. That is thinking famine, right? If you're in famine, how much food do you need to get out of famine? But if you want to innovate, that is not enough. You need to double the current capacity, and this is not random numbers I'm throwing at you, and this is not based on something which will be unsustainable from an environment standpoint. So if you look at it on a per capita basis per year, the US spends about 8,000 units. We shouldn't get there. Europe spends about 4,000 units per capita per year of energy. We don't want to get there. World average is 2,500 units. We don't want to get there either. We are at 500 units. At that point, we are not sustainable either. We are too low in terms of our ability to provide jobs for the kind of population that we have. So we at least need to be at 1,000 units per capita per year, which means we have to double to 400 gigawatts. That's 200 gigawatts additional, which is $200 billion in opportunity for the entrepreneurs amongst you in generation alone. Another $200 billion in transmission and distribution. So if you want to find an area where you can innovate, this is definitely one. I've seen many ideas which are fantastic, small-scale biomass power combined with single-phase power. So thinking local, why do I need three-phase when the application is single-phase? I've seen hydropower applications, small-scale, doing multiple tasks, including producing bags which have a square bottom. Laser-ignited IC engines, that's going to be big IC engines, not only to move people, but also to produce power. If you can do it more efficiently, power be with you. Hydrogen production, hydrogen economy has been tried, failed, being tried again. Hydrogen doesn't exist in nature. So if you want an hydrogen economy, you need a cost-effective way to separate hydrogen from wherever else it is located. So if you can do that, fantastic. I've seen some discussion around that. But that's not sufficient. You need to be thinking about large-scale generation also. You can't get to 200 gigawatts by only doing small-scale generation. You will be able to do a lot, but you need to still think about supercritical steam turbines. You need to still think about combined cycle with gas turbines. You need to think about large wind turbines. You need to think about coal gasification. And do not stop short. You can do it. And the knowledge and what is required, we have. and various other companies have. So we would be happy and proud to reach out and together think about what is the solution. The other area is accessible healthcare. I've seen a lot of solutions in this space also. Today, we are at 5% of GDP in terms of healthcare spend. The developed world is at 10% of GDP. We need to be at least at, the developed world is at 15% GDP. We need to be at least at 10% GDP. So again, we'll have to double the spend in healthcare. That's a great opportunity. And I've seen some wonderful areas of innovation from all of you. Vitamin deficiency assessment, I just broadened the category. I think it was vitamin B12, being able to detect the deficiency there. But being able to look at various kinds of deficiencies which are there, especially in our rural population whose nutrition is not where we could make it be. Maternal care, I've seen good applications on pregnancy and things of that kind. Vision support, a lot of applications around people with disabilities. Memory support for people with Alzheimer, prosthesis materials, and a lot of other material applications. Drug and contrast agent delivery, low-cost health monitors. We would be happy to partner on especially things like low-cost health monitors. So the way you make healthcare accessible is thinking about where to take your healthcare, from hospitals to primary care centers to homes, finally, and who gives this healthcare, from doctors to nurse assistants to family members, finally. So various other areas that I've seen innovation for traditional professions such as fishing, agriculture, rubber tapping, fabric and clothing, water. By 2020, we will be short of water beyond what even transportation of water will solve. So we have from you ideas on filters, dredging methods, but we also need to be thinking about desalination water, industrial water reuse. Safety was another area. I saw both ends of the spectrum. There was a zapper for molesters, and there was a live wire detector system. Fantastic applications. Transportation, I've seen applications on ventilation of parked cars, but we also need to think about large volume public transport. Education system, I've not seen much innovation. I think that is extremely important that we create ideas on how to get better at delivering what I call as finishing schools. So while you're all great products from coming out of the universities, of course IIM and those schools prepare you for the industry. But as an engineering coming out of an engineering college, I think there is a great opportunity to make a finished product out of the students. Now, in the next 10 years, 80% of the workforce will be new. That is the statistic. So think about the opportunity which is there for folks who want to get out there into education. Huge amount. Appliances for growing middle class, 500 new consumers will be there. So people have come up with stout-up ideas from your teams, but there is a lot more to be done there. One area which I didn't see, probably because also this is the Gandhian innovation thought process, but I don't think it is a misfit, which is gaming. And gaming is the most rapid growing industry out there in a time where everything else is going down. Gaming is increasing at 40% in terms of the growth, right? So think about that. And think about we have to think about creating an ecosystem for entrepreneurs. So there are many venture capitalists who approach me for people with ideas to take it into the market. And you have the ideas. More than happy to connect you. What you will have to help me with is, one, you have to have the passion. You cannot just have an idea during your college project and just drop it after that. You have to have the passion to rally around that. And you need to form a team which will make it success. Beyond that, finding the right kind of capital to take it into the market has become much more easier in India. So with that, I'll wind up and again request you to say with me that this generation belongs to us. We will create with freedom, nurture with passion, and change with detachment, because the only way the future is going to be sustainable is the Gandhian way. Thank you very much.